Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and slowly get started. We're going to be discussing the Nautilus approach, which is kind of our approach to discipline and regulation here at Mountain City Public Montessori. My name is Cheryl Allen, and I am the Montessori coach here. To be honest, we are all learning about the Nautilus approach. So we just are practicing and doing our best, and I may not be able to answer every question because it may be a learning opportunity for me as well, but I have been getting a lot of practice with it. So I think I can help out. I'm going to be sharing my presentation, which means I can't see you. So if you have a question, just speak up. And we are recording this for people to be able to watch later. Okay. I wanted to start with this nice quote from Dr. Montessori. She said this at the International Montessori Conference in 1937. Do we believe and constantly insist that cooperation among the peoples of the world is necessary in order to bring about peace? If so, what is needed first of all is collaboration with children. All our efforts will come to nothing until we remedy the great injustice done the child and remedy it by cooperating with them. If we are among people of goodwill who yearn for peace, we must lay the foundation for peace ourselves by working for the social world of the child. It's hard to believe that we can have peace without teaching it and providing opportunities for our children. So that is what we aim to do in our school. And we call it a system of justness rather than justice, justness. And it has three areas. Oh, sorry, the lights go out here. It's three areas: Montessori implementation, so high fidelity Montessori, our Nautilus approach, which is what we're going to talk about today, and any special interventions that we need to do for children, any special opportunities we need to provide them. A system of justness, it's not in exactly the same words, but it is part of our charter. It's a school-wide constructivist approach, we're going to talk about that allows Montessori communities to give consistent responses to children in need within a known structure. So we'll talk about some really specific things that we say and do, and there's paperwork behind it. So we're keeping track. We don't feel like we're always with one child and we're ignoring another one. We're trying to really make sure that we're being equal. We're offering equality. Our Montessori mindset is understanding and utilizing the principles of development. We say we follow the child in Montessori, and we do, but we don't just follow the child's interests, we also follow their development. So we may be thinking of where they're going to be next or where they are right now in their development, not just following their interest in dinosaurs. We're going to bring development into it. And we value preparation of the adult and the environment, and the adult prepares the environment. We use a language of reverence. So we try not to say, or we don't say, they're having a fit. We say they have big feelings, because they're just expressing themselves in the way that they know how. And our role as adults is to teach them a different way than crying or screaming. We just are teaching them a way that is to respect the rest of the people around them when they have their big feelings, and figure out a way to share them that's respectful to everybody. And we recognize the unlimited potential of every learner. I mean, we know that everybody is going to do great things. We just need to be able to let them achieve that. Part of the system of justness was the constructivist approach. We're probably most familiar with the behaviorist approach. Unless you went to Montessori school or some other alternative educations, you can probably think back to your schooling for this. In the behaviorist approach, the goal is to extinguish undesirable behavior using either the carrot or the stick, incentives or deterrence. Some of you may have this happen at work. It definitely happened in school. In the behaviorist approach, in a school system or a home system, the adult plays the central role. So the adult does the decision making, they direct the outcomes, they determine the standards, and they don't always stay the same. That's what we try to avoid in a society that runs by a behaviorist approach. We look at the constructivist approach and aim for that. So constructiveness offers reinforcement. We want to encourage and to have them know, like, these are beneficial things to you. So we do those through affirmations, encouragement. I'm also going to say we do part of it through what we're teaching them. So we talk about building your brain, and we teach about the brain and what they're doing is important for that. We use accountability. All classrooms have class agreements, and we'll remind them, is it your agreement to do work every day? Is it your agreement to grow your brain? Whatever the wording is for their agreement, we're going to come to those pretty quickly if there's a problem. And the community holds the power. So if somebody needs to scream, the classroom is not the place for that because it disrupts the community. Let's figure out a different place. Oh, there's nobody on the playground? Great. Let's go out there and let your feelings out. In behaviorist, we'd offer rewards, use deterrence. So you were screaming in the classroom, you don't get to go to recess, and the adult holds all the power and makes all the decisions. We try to make them together, knowing that we don't let safety go. Does that make sense? I can't see anybody, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the question is, what is Nautilus that we're coming here to meet about tonight? And it's our system of support for students, especially those who may need extra help for a moment of big feelings. Each adult here at Mountain City Public Montessori guides students through the Nautilus system, and every student is a part of the Nautilus system. And you may think, oh, my child doesn't have big feelings at school or doesn't express their big feelings at school, which is fine. They're still a part of the Nautilus system because it starts at working, and really it ends at working. That's always our aim. Oh, see, I got ahead of myself. The goal of Nautilus is always to return to work. And that's where we start. And we use the word work in Montessori. Play is work. Snack is work. lunch is a lot of work for many of us, and recess is work. There's a lot of social work going on. There's a lot of skill building. So it's not just pencil and paper that we're thinking about or homework. That's part of it, the materials and pencil and paper, but that's not all that's work. So basically everything we're doing at school is work. And that's how we're building our bodies and our brains. Oops, sorry, skipped ahead. Oh, I really skipped ahead. This is where the Nautilus is, the shell. And they chose this because phase 0, an engaged person, is in the center and it builds out, and we're always trying to go back. A behaviorist approach is a ladder going up, and so coming back down feels like doing something negative, even though that's the goal. So if you think of, if any classrooms had, like a little clip that moved up for good behavior or misbehavior, none of that's happening here. And what we're thinking about is just how to help them get back to the center and get back to work. That center is phase 0 when they are engaged in work. So you've seen all the pictures, and I'm sorry I don't have pictures here. I wasn't sure who was able to be shared since we're recording this. But they're building the pink tower. They're doing research. Today I saw students doing figuring out volume with measuring and doing the large bead frame and figuring out the names of large numbers. I saw students building with the red rods and coloring and figuring out painting and cleaning it up, which is a really important part of the work and a very big task. All of those students were engaged in work, even though those things are very different. Phase 1, student may need a reminder. They're like, I don't want to put this away, and that might be going on in their head, so they just leave it or they push it away. Something that we need to ask as the adult, hey, what's going on? I see that you pushed your work away and you're leaving it there. So we're telling them what's happening just in case they aren't aware or they need to know that we notice. But we're asking them what's going on first, and we're pausing and waiting so that they can tell us. Maybe it's, I don't like what I painted. I want another piece of paper. We might not know. I wish I had crayons instead. We don't know what's going on, so we ask them to find out. And that's a really powerful question, especially when they're activated. So they've gone into their amygdala, they're feeling part of the brain, they aren't really reasoning. Asking them what's going on when they're at that point, which we come back to this question a lot. When they're at that point, asking what's going on can really stop them in their tracks because they aren't used to us asking. They're used to us telling. This is what you did. This is what we saw. And that's not always what's going on inside them. So asking that and giving the chance, even if it's wildly different than what you think went on or what you saw, we want to give the opportunity for that. Phase 2, they're showing that they're a little more activated. They have an extra need from us. We need to stay with them we're no longer going to just leave them with the work because we can see that they're getting upset. They need some guidance. So we ask them what they need. We may verbalize what's happening again, especially with the younger students. I see that you pushed your work away. You're getting up and leaving it there. Is there something you need? How can I help you? We're offering that opportunity so that we can help them solve their problem and get back to work. If none of that works, so at any point in this, we want to stop, it works, they go back to work. So they tell us for this, I need another piece of paper. I didn't mean to use black in my painting. Great. Let's come back, or I didn't know it would cover the whole paper. Let's get you another piece of paper. Do you remember where it is? Okay, they're settled in again. Even though they didn't like that painting, they're ready to go back to work. If that doesn't work, at phase 3, we offer a choice. And it can't be like a fake choice. You can either go keep this painting or never take the painting work out again. It is not a real choice. A real choice would be you can put this painting on the drying rack or in recycling before you get another piece of paper. So either of those choices are okay with us. They just need to do one before they get the next piece of paper. Either choice will lead back to work focus. So they need to get that painting out of their sight to be able to go back to work. We've offered them 2 ways to do that. And we follow through with the choice. If they can't make a choice on their own, then we need to let them through need to let them know which one we're going to follow through on. If you don't want to put this on the drying rack or put this in recycling, I will put it on the drying rack for you. I'll know because you'll tell me. And sometimes we ask yes or no questions. Do you want to put this on the drying rack? Do you want me to put this on the drying rack? Do you want to put it in recycling? We go through all of those options because they may be so upset by it that it's hard for them to let us know and answer this. And we pause for a long time. They need to process. They're already a little worked up. It's harder to process when you're worked up. That's just how our human brains work. So we need to give them time to answer. And the younger you are, probably the more time that you need. I just said to the staff today, I try to wait until it's really uncomfortable for me. And then I count to 10 in my head. And then I go to the next thing. Oh, you weren't able to answer me yet. Would you like me to do this? And then I'm going to wait again. So it's awkward, but they need that time to be able to process what you've said and think about what they want their answer to be and give their answer. When we follow through, if I said, I will put this on the drying rack for you, then I'm going to actually pick it up and put it on the drying rack. If they didn't choose or they chose, or if it's something that's spilled, I'm going to help them clean up. I'm not going to get into a power struggle. I'm not going to pull something out of their hand, but I'm going to start the process that I want them to, of what I want them to do in that choice. For phase 5, we reflect, like, are we feeling like we're getting into a power struggle here? Are we just activated ourselves? And this is where hopefully we have somebody else there. This does not happen as often at home. You don't get a walkie-talkie like I do. But hopefully there's somebody there who you can say, I need to tap out. And then another person can tap in and start again at phase 1, asking what's happening. Here, we tap out with our teaching partner, or we tap out with another adult. I get a walkie-talkie, so when they really need to tap out, they call me. But we don't always get that at home. So if your child is a little bit older, sometimes you can say to them, you can say, I need to tap out, or you can say, I'm going to go do whatever. I'm going to make dinner. You may stay here with your books and come see me when when you want to talk to me, or I'll come check on you in 5 minutes. You can usually step out of the room or out of their immediate range and take a moment for yourself. Take a breath, relax, check in with your feelings. And that's really powerful for us as adults, because we often feel that we need to solve the situation right away and get our child to comply right away with whatever we think they need to comply with. And usually we have time. So we need to try to give it to ourselves. Phase 6, here at school, they call for somebody else. We need more help. They call us to tap in. At home, you can call somebody else to tap in if you need to, or like I said, just take a break. You don't have to deal with something the second that it happens. If there is an argument between children, you can step in and said, we'll deal with this in 5 minutes, or we'll deal with this after a snack. Sometimes we're not rewarding by giving a snack. We're just not having to deal with the hangry person who is not going to be able to resolve the situation or resolve their feelings. So you can take a break before you deal with anything. In class at phase 7, they leave the classroom with an adult just to take a break from there. We work on figuring it out with whatever has happened with them. This is usually when you will get a referral form or a phone call home to let you know that this is going on. We couldn't resolve it in the classroom. Honestly, if we go to the hallway just because it's a little quieter, that's not the same thing. But if we need to take a prolonged time away, then we want you to know, because they're missing instructional time and missing time with their friends. And that doesn't happen too often. Phase 8, the student returns to the classroom, or at home, they return to whatever you're doing at home. And this is really important. We greet them. Let them know we're glad they're back. We're not talking about what happened. That can come later. First, they need to reconnect to the classroom, to their teacher, to their friend. That doesn't mean that if, in the case of the paint, if the whole tray got knocked over, it doesn't mean we're just going to ignore that. means that probably the adults have managed any spill or safety concern, but also left whatever they could there. So the child will come back, regulate into the classroom. We may remind them, oh, you had just done the painting work and it needs to go back on the shelf. Do you need help getting it, returning it to the shelf? And help them with that as a way to connect and have them return it to the shelf. Or we may point out a work that they were interested in doing. So we're really going to work to reconnect them to the classroom. At home, it would look like reminding them of something that they like to do or something that they had been looking forward to doing. You wanted to read that book with me. Would you like to read 2 pages now and then we'll go talk to your sister about sharing about, could be anything, about sharing the other book that you both wanted to read. So we can kind of make that connection first. If something is dangerous, destructive, or demeaning, it can move to a phase 7 immediately. Those actions are dependent on age, development, and intent. So if a young child tosses something aside when they're done with it, that's going to be a little bit different than if an older child aims and throws something at us or at somebody in the classroom. So we're taking all of that into account before we're deciding that it's a phase 7, or we're figuring it out afterwards, kind of as a group. So you can see that this is a little bit different than you may be familiar with. We're not, we don't have a goal of compliance. We don't necessarily have a goal of righting the wrong that was done. That usually does happen, but our goal is to help the student regulate themselves and return to work in the classroom. And then anything that happens between more than one person is dealt with when they're regulated. If you've ever tried to have a conversation with a significant other when you're already angry about something, you know it doesn't really go well. Even if that something is a bad day at work, you're already what we call dysregulated. So then, like, you're coming in hot, and then, you know, setting the table was wrong, and all of a sudden you have a fight about nothing. If that's already happened, 2 kids wanted the same place online, I didn't want my friend to sit next to that person. That is a conflict that needs to be dealt with. But first, we're going to help the student that is elevated come down and regulate themselves so they can figure out with their reasoning brain a solution to the problem with their friend. So we aren't ignoring it, but we sometimes delay it. See, I'm always getting ahead of my slides. Conflict resolution between 2 or more people starts with a pause to deactivate so that we can be thoughtful about our decision and about our resolution. Each person, we ask them to consider, how do you think your friend felt? So we want them to put themselves in each other's shoes. This is really important to develop empathy. So if your child comes home to you, which I'm sure this has already happened, this person is really mean at school. This person wouldn't let me do the painting work. or I sat where I wanted to, so I pushed them, or whatever happened. We asked them to think, how do you think the other person felt? And how, for our younger kids, how would you feel if that was you? How would you feel if you had been pushed when you were trying to sit on the line? And they can usually answer that question before they can answer how the other person would feel. So then we talk about, they would probably feel the same way. They might not feel good because they were pushed, just like you wouldn't feel good because you were pushed. We try to lead through questions and having one person share at a time. So they can't both be answering the questions at the same time. We let one person talk and then the other person talk. That might be the hardest part. We do not require apologies, but we assume that they can repair the relationship. So we're going to help them consider what they can do to make amends. Maybe that is saying sorry. Maybe it is going and cleaning up. Maybe it's just eating lunch with them because they're not ready to say sorry. And usually their friend will let them know. I'm not sure I want to eat with you unless you say you're sorry. Like, they'll let them know what they need for amends, or we'll have conversations with them. That can happen at home too, especially older child to adult. I've probably gotten more tea or something brought to me or something nice done than apologies when my children were teenagers and they would realize something they did was not very thoughtful. They wouldn't always say sorry in words, but they would in actions. And that was okay. As a part of returning to the group and to the family, we really consider the student's strengths, partly just to put us in that mind frame again. Our brain wants to focus on the negative, so we might need to actively consider the strengths. And how can we utilize those for success in the environment? So a strength may be that they really care about their artwork. So how can we create a work that lets them showcase that strength? Or it might be that they really like spending time with their friends. So how can we give them the opportunity for that? This can happen at home too. Any questions about Nautilus? I mean, that's a lot. We did days of training on this. And you'll be able to go back to this. So even before we go through all of that, before any support is needed, part of what we're doing is building our relationship. And for us, that's fairly new with everybody. We're a new school. We're making and keeping agreements. I talked about the ones in the classroom. Also, we might make agreements with an individual child. You can go to the quiet area when you're feeling sad. Then we need to keep up that agreement. If they come to us and say, I'm feeling sad, then we need to let them go to the quiet area because that's the agreement that we've made. And we really try to keep them and to not make agreements that we can't keep. We try to maintain consistency in what we can control. So we have more routines and structure in the classroom than many people think about Montessori. You take a work from a shelf, you return it to the shelf. There's guidelines about how we manage the material, so we treat everything carefully. We maintain that consistency so that we can be a little flexible in other ways, and so we're maintaining the support and making people comfortable. When there is a problem, we focus on the problem with the actions, not the problem with the person. There's cereal all over the floor. How are we going to clean that up? Rather than you always spill, or even you spilled that. If we can depersonalize it a little bit, then it's easier to manage emotions around it. At the same time, we accept big feelings. It's okay to be upset that your friend is playing with somebody else. It's okay to be scared about going to school after a weekend. It's okay to miss your parents. That's okay. At home, you can do some of the same things. You can ask what's happening. Even if you think you've been there for the entire thing, whatever happened, you saw one child take a book from another child's hands, that's why the younger one is crying. Like, you saw it all happen. Still need to ask what's happening, because they may tell you, this is my favorite book, I was reading it next to bed. Like, there may be more information that you couldn't have seen and that's just inside of them. So asking that question lets you know how to help them. And then ask what's needed. Okay, this is an important book for you, and your sister is reading it because she started it yesterday. I offered it to her. I didn't know what's needed for you to feel safe about this, or for you to feel respected about this. Maybe they'll tell you, I just need her to use a bookmark instead of turning over the corner of the page. Great. Like, that's easily solved. But if you didn't ask, it could have been, a couple of days. We talked about leaving time for them to process and answer. They may not know what's needed right away. I asked someone that today, what do you need? And he said, I don't know. I'll tell you tomorrow. And when, it was like, I'm going to go back to work until then. So I thought that was a great answer. Maybe he'll tell me tomorrow. Maybe he won't. Maybe it'll be forgotten. But obviously he felt like that solved, being given the opportunity, solved his dilemma. Help your child calm down before focusing on or correcting the situation. I know sometimes other people think that you're not actually dealing with the situation. And as a parent, that's really hard. And you can just let them know you're dealing with it when their brain is ready. But if you're not calmed down, whatever information you're giving, whatever lesson you think they're learning, they're not learning it. That's not the way our brains work. Or they're learning it in such a negative way that it's going to have, it's not going to be a good lesson. There's going to be some concern around it always. So calm down first, then whatever they need to learn from it, you can guide them after that. Tap out if needed. If you can, offer to tap in when you can. And if your children are older, just tell them, I need to tap out of this conversation for a little bit. When can we come back to it? And really come back to it. I must have tapped out of the I need a cell phone conversation 50 times before we could really figure it out. But I wasn't ready for all of the emotion coming to me around it. And so we had to come back to it a lot of times. Accept the big feelings are okay. Even if it doesn't seem to make sense to you, especially for preteen and teen years, there's a lot that they might not even be able to tell you because they're not sure what's happening. And those feelings are okay, even if nobody is 100% certain why they're there. And admire your child's strengths. This is something that the kids do so well. And as adults, we forget. I know I sent a picture to one of the guides because I thought their classroom looked so beautiful. And she said, thank you. And I know why you sent it. And I found 3 things that I needed to fix in that picture. I think as humans, we do that when we're older. We have to work against it. Children are just often impressed with things that we don't think are that big a deal. This morning, I used the code to let somebody in the door. And with all sincerity, they said, you're really good at opening the doors with your code. I was like, a strength I did not know I had. So we need to do that for them as often as they do it for us. That's it for Nautilus, but we have time for questions. So lots of times for questions. And our next one will be October 11th. It's also Zoom, and it's more at home, Montessori at home. Are there any questions? Everybody's just eating dinner. You can just shout them out.
Sure, this is Heather. Thank you so much. This is incredibly helpful just to understand more deeply how y'all are approaching these humans.
Yes.
So I think 2 questions came up for me. One, early on when you were talking about peace, I've heard my little one refer to peacetime over and over again. And I realized I have no idea what peacetime entails. And then the second question is I feel so moved by just how heartfelt and thoughtful just the way you were talking was throughout this conversation, this repeating of big feelings over and over again. And I wonder if you have advice for parents knowing that this is how the space is being held at school. How can we talk to our kids about other kids' big feelings as a way of helping them regulate the dysregulation that can come up when they're, in relationship or in shared space with a kid who's having a really hard time?
Yeah. Those are both really good questions. The first one is really quick. Peacetime in the primary classroom is what you might call quiet time. Like the lights are low. They are usually doing something individual. They can be looking at a book or just resting a little bit. So, but the peacetime sound is so lovely. Then we talk about, I mean, because obviously we have times when a friend is having big feelings and we're in the space, but not necessarily involved. And that's exactly what we say. Oh, you know, this person's having big feelings, and you can ask, do you want me near? Do you want a hug? You know, so they'll sometimes offer things like that, or you're free to just go about your business and acknowledge that somebody's crying. Especially the younger ones will walk by sometimes and say, oh, they're sad, and kind of go on with their world. Like they just acknowledge it and go on. And sometimes they'll help their friend. They just, I don't know how they know when to help and when to just go on, but they seem to, or maybe that's their space right then. Does that help with acknowledging other people's feelings?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else? I know, and the language, big feelings, is it just takes practice. I'm going to say my friend is a family therapist, and every time I use this stuff, she's always like, I'm going to use that in practice. This is, those pauses are really good for marriage counseling too, or for any relationships. So it's great with everybody.
Hey, Cheryl, I just wanted to echo the gratitude from other folks I'm seeing for this presentation. You had mentioned at some point there's like a note home or a phone call. Is there a way that you all are tracking that so that, you know, at the end of the year, you can see if there's any bias being played out around gender or around race?
Yep. We don't even wait till the end of the year. We look at it regularly, and we do have a spreadsheet that we track the time of day, which is honestly the most difficult one, because you're in a situation and then you're like, oh, when did this start? But you know, we do try to track obviously the person, the time of the day, their classroom, who asked for extra help, race, gender, and like a quick situation. Did it involve somebody else? Was it demeaning? Was it destructive? You know, we're looking at all of those things, and we look at that. I mean, I think it will be monthly as the year goes on. We just looked at it recently, so it was like 5 weeks. We gave ourselves a little extra time at the beginning of the year, a little bit of grace. But we are, as part of our equity work, definitely checking that. So far, it's been a variety.
Happy to hear that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciate how, like, obviously creating a whole new school here is one thing, but you're also adding this very intentional approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very thankful and grateful, just echoing what others said. So, and also thank you for sharing with us today, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Thank you. I mean, you had a big part in creating it. So it's not, we stand on your shoulders with our work. So it's all good work, and it's not easy work, and none of us expect it to be easy. It requires asking ourselves hard questions all the time. Am I considering my privilege? Is a question we ask ourselves regularly, and not just looking at other people's. And I'll say, as a parent, it is something that I remind my own children of, and have since they were old enough. You know, they'll complain about something, and I'll say, check your privilege, think about it. And, you know, they know, they consider it. So we try to do the same thing. And at the same time, we feel very privileged to be in a Montessori school. It's both and. Anything else? I know. Oh, Lauren, go ahead. I don't know how to unmute you. Lauren, can you unmute? And I see your hands raised. I'm not Google Meet super great, so. Did you have a question? Oh, no. In fact, I can't unmute you, Lauren. But if you have a question, I'm happy to answer or try. All right, I'm going to wrap up. This will be on our, I don't know, wherever Brittany puts it. It will be available to you through Brittany, and I think there's space on our website. But thank you so much for joining and for all of the gratitude. Really, really thank you for sharing your children with us, because I always think it's a privilege. We just love having them here. So thank you. Wait, Ashley shared something. Let me make sure Ashley doesn't have a question. Thank you, Ashley. And we are going to be doing a lot of bringing Montessori home to do that, to have the connection between school and home. That is our next one. I actually have invited my friend who was one of the authors of Montessori for Every Family, which is about bringing Montessori home. So we'll see if she says yes. But I've invited her to join us in October, and I hope she's available. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us. I know this is a rough time for younger children at home, but we are really glad to have you be a part of our community and join with us. So thank you.
Sherry, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop recording. Where did it go?